All right. Well, welcome to this very special episode of the Hammer Factor. On this show, we have 2017 and 2008 Tough Mudder World Champion Hunter McIntyre. And one of my favorite quotes from Hunter to lead this off is "Biceps win races." Welcome to the Hammer Factor, Hunter, and how are you doing?
Well, I like my nickname Humper. And
Well, before we dig into this interview, can you share something with our audience that most people probably don't know about you?
what's Rory knows this about me. Not many people know this about me. I tried going vegan for a while, and if you know anything about me now, I eat like 2 or 3 pounds of steak a day. And I tried being vegan, and it was cool, and it also my dad shamed me, my friend shamed me. And now I'm back on the dark side of eating meat again. But that's probably something people don't know about me. And I do believe in the vegan diet. I just, you know what? It's just not who I am. So if you didn't know that about me, I'm glad that you know now.
Well, how was your vegan experience?
You know what? Like, my skin felt amazing. My recovery was amazing. But, like, the muscle and mojo of who I was as a human being just went out the window. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't do it perfectly, but I thought like I was eating really, really healthy. Like I was eating tons of fruit and vegetables and tons of beans and like all the stuff that you'd imagine like a really healthy vegan would eat. And I ate it in mass quantity. And you know what? Like I turned into a shrimp, but now I'm back on steak. I'm now back on the steak diet.
I did a vegan diet for 30 days. I enjoyed it, but I kind of felt the same. I'm still plant-based, but I definitely need to eat some meat every now and then.
Yeah, come on. How can you avoid a good-looking ribeye?
Well, let's start from the beginning. Before you were an obstacle course racing champion, before you were on TV shows like Boundless, where are you from, and what kind of passions did you have before you got into obstacle course racing?
Well, I'm from New York City and Connecticut. I was split between New York and Connecticut for the majority of my life until I was 18. And then as soon as I hit 18, like I ended up getting a lot of trouble in high school and had to go to rehab for a year. And then like that started me off on like a nonstop pinball machine lifestyle where I moved from Montana to Taos, New Mexico, to Nevada, back to Montana, then to Rhode Island, then to New York, then to Miami, then to Europe. Like I just kept on moving at like such a crazy rate of speed. And honestly, like I never really had any passions of like right now I'm so passionate about fitness and I'm very passionate about being outside. But there was no one thing that you could look at me and be like, wow, Hunter is so in love with this. Like I loved skateboarding when I was a kid, and I liked smoking weed and drinking beer when I was in high school, but there was nothing that ever like I was ever so passionate about. And it's interesting now because like the biggest word in my language is passion, because I say like, if you're not passionate about what you're doing, then you don't really have the ultimate chance of succeeding in what you're following through on. So like saying whether or not you're a chiropractor, a businessman, or professional athlete, if you're not incredibly passionate about what you're doing, I just don't think that you're going to have the spark to light that fire that's going to make like an incredible life for you and the story that you're going to tell your kids. So it's interesting. Like it took until I was 19 years old to be like, wait a second, I really love fitness. And that was my first ever true passion. So it was kind of a crazy lifestyle to start.
So you were on this path, not necessarily the path to success, and then at some point you went down this fitness road. Were there any mentors or any person that you could give credit or felt like nudged you along in that regard, or is this something you fully found on your own?
I would give almost all of the credit to my grandfather. My dad was always really, really encouraging and always like made me be the best at anything I did. But it wasn't because he wanted me to be the best at any one thing. He's just like, if you're going to do something, be the best. And he would harass the shit out of me during cross country season and stuff. But my grandfather, he was incredible, man. Like he was just so over the top good at what he did and just was so passionate about what he did. It's something that I hope that I can follow through on as I get older. Like, he went to become a doctor, and studied at Harvard and became a doctor. And like, he wasn't able to do the athletic stuff while he was studying to be a doctor. So then after he graduated medical school, he went back to athletics and he pursued it and became a Masters Olympian and a Masters world champion in sports, and track and field. And he would always, like, when I was younger, I'd throw rocks into the water. He'd be like, "Man, you got an arm." He's like, "You better start throwing." And he got me into throwing. And then I, set the school record in javelin. And he's like, "Well, you seem really fast. You got to start running." And he would just constantly, he just gave me all the tools and gave me all the encouragement that was necessary. And then as I got older, like, I was like, wow, like, I got to see what he is doing and how he did it and the way he held himself. Like, he was very humble. I'm a bit of a hothead, not in a bad way, but like, I'm just a loud and wild person. He was always so humble and graceful about the whole thing. Like, you'd never know that he had accomplished all those things. So I'd give pretty much the gold star to him. Like, he was definitely my driving force.
Kind of our mission statement here at the Hammer Factor is we help successful athletes share their genius with the world. And one of the things that is an underlying theme is almost every athlete that we've interviewed has some sort of mentor or some sort of person who had that kind of effect on them. It's really interesting to hear that it was your grandfather.
Yeah, I'm lucky to have him.
Now, we have, people don't know this, but we have a mutual friend, a close friend of my family, Rory Bozio, and you did an entire year on a TV show called Boundless. And I just got to bring up one part of that show to our listeners. I don't know where you can find Boundless now. If it's online somewhere, maybe you can help us with that, Hunter. But there is one line. You're in there with all of these experienced ultra runners. I believe you guys were in Argentina getting ready to do a 50-mile race. I'm not exactly sure where you were at. And there's kind of this interview talking about what your approach is going to be and what you're going to do. You had never ran even remotely, as far as my understanding was, that far. And one line that resonated with me is, all the other guys on the show and Roy were like, "Yeah, I'm just going to make sure I get plenty of water. It's going to be hot. Or, take it easy, blah, blah, blah." And your first statement was, "Well, I'm just going to get out front and, just try and stay there." I mean, where does that mentality come from? Like, where did that come from? What were you thinking at that point?
Well, I lied on my resume when it came to Boundless. Like, I got contacted and they're like, "Have you done ultras? Do you know how to go rappelling? Do you know, like, all about, like, the nutrition and gear that comes along with this? Like, do you have the preparation?" And I was like, "Of course." And I kept on checking all the boxes and, it was basically rubbish answers, because when someone contacts you like, "Hey, do you want to do a television show traveling the world doing adventure races?" I was like, "Yes." "Do you have the experience?" And I'm like, "No, but you don't need to know that." And so basically I came in with like a kind of just a dumb and brash attitude that I did with all the turkey trots and cross country races that I had done my entire life. Like, just like Prefontaine, just get out front and run hard. And if anybody wants to beat you, they're going to have to kill themselves in the process. And I had never really learned the pacing. Like, the pacing of a 5K is, obviously very different than the pacing of a run across the desert. It was in Chile. But I didn't know that. So I just ran. And eventually, if you watch the whole episode, I crack so magnificently in the middle of the desert, about 55 miles in. And it was a good moment. And I still have the same attitude. I've got no regrets.
Yeah, I love that. Well, you could foreshadow that there was probably going to be some difficulties along the way with your run, but just that attitude really stuck out. And, I mean, let's be honest, if you ever want to win at anything, you kind of got to have that attitude.
Well, most certainly. I think that was one of the most incredible years for me to just learn how to get an ass beating. Honestly, like, I'd always just had really good luck. Like, I was really good at wrestling and I was really good at running. And then I got into Spartan Race and I was really good at that. And I hadn't found anything that just had beaten the crap out of me. And out of that show, I think we did 10 races and I dropped out of half of them just because I wasn't ready and I just got pummeled. So it just gave me a chance to take a step back, have a little perspective, learn a little bit. And now, like, I honestly, like, at the time I hated it, and I was so so over it. But now I think about those races and I'm like, someday I have to go back and conquer those adventures.
That's great. So it's, you were explaining you did javelin, you've done these other sports, wrestling. How did you find your way to obstacle course racing?
It was just random timing. I was living in Malibu with a bunch of bros in a bro mansion, and we were all drinking a lot of beer, and I didn't have a car because I just moved from New York City, and I lived up on top of a hill in Malibu, like a big mountain. And we just had a lot of time on our computers and a lot of time in the gym. So we found there wasn't Instagram at the time, so like people weren't just like thumb scrolling. We'd like have to actually get on YouTube and like really research stuff and try to find things that would entertain us. And we discovered Spartan Race in 2011. My friend found it and he just started screaming Sparta. And we were like, ah, and we all got so excited, and they're like, you can't win this thing. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'll win this thing. I'll crush it. And I went out there hungover, and I was still drinking beer in the morning, the hair of the dog. And I was in my underwear and a pair of tube socks and a bandana, and I just rampaged. Like, I remember stripping down into my underwear, and it wasn't like sexy, like trail running, like Spanx. It was straight up like Hanes cotton underwear, and it was like tighty whitey status. And then I can tell you, when they told us to go, like, honestly, it just felt like I got shot out of a cannon. Like, I hadn't run anything since high school in a very competitive format. So I knew at that point, I was like, wow. When I finished it, I was like, that felt special. Like I haven't felt that way in a long time. And it just gave me a sense of purpose. It gave me a reason to kind of live and train again. Because at the time I was doing, back and triceps and chest and biceps and legs and shoulders workouts. Right. And it doesn't really have, other than one, just look good naked. It didn't really have any purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
How did you end up doing in that race?
I took 6th place out of 10,000 people. So it was pretty, let's say maybe a couple hundred people showed up trying to see what they were made of, and the other 10,000, 9,000 whatever came to just get a picture and experience life. And because that was really Spartan Race in its infancy, and now it's at the point where we're on ESPN and it's global, and it's pretty freaking crazy to show up at a race now and get top 10. Like, you have to be a fully honed in athlete. So I was lucky that I started at the time that I did.
I have seen a lot of outdoor sports and been around just a lot of sports in general, and I have never seen the rise of popularity of a discipline like obstacle course racing. I mean, you just mentioned 10,000 people at this event. Are there any estimates about how many people compete in these events per year? What can you tell us about the sport of obstacle course racing?
Gosh, I think back in 2014 when my friend shot his documentary Rise of the Sufferfest, there was like 5 million people a year doing them. It was something ridiculous. Wow. Because it's huge in the United States, it's huge in Europe, big in North America, like Canada, and pretty big in Mexico, big in Australia. Now it's starting to spread into Asia. Like, these guys, they don't mess around, and on every single weekend, you can find an obstacle course race in the country. Like, you'll find 10 of them, because there's companies like Warrior Dash, Savage Race, Tough Mudder, Spartan Race. There was Bone Frog, Battle Frog. There's just everything you can imagine, and they stretch from all different distances of a mile all the way up to 24 hours. So it's constant. I mean, like, you'll never get bored, and there'll always be a reason to keep on getting their participants to buy back in after they've done their first one. So they're very clever, and it's a very exciting environment.
So do you think maybe the fact that these races are different each time, it's not, if you do a 5K, you're always pretty much just going to run 5K. Why do you think there's so much popularity with obstacle course racing? Is it the variation?
Well, I've always thought that marathoning and 10Ks and 5Ks were just like kind of almost the only opportunity for people outside of, high school or collegiate sports after they graduated, like an opportunity for them to stay athletic. Like there's not many things where you're like, well, I can sign up for a local 5K and it will just be an encouraging way for you to get in shape for the spring or stay in shape for the wintertime, and look good in your bikini in the summertime. It's just something that everyone can do. And until CrossFit, there wasn't much stuff either. There's not so many people who are doing the mountain biking and so many people doing the recreational rock climbing. And then all of a sudden there's this thing where it's like, everybody can do it and you can get a little wild and it's like a whole new opportunity. And like a lot of guys want to take their shirts off and flex, and a lot of girls want to look sexy and muddy in their bikini, their sports bra. And it just was kind of this, I mean, if you watch the documentary Rise of the Sufferfest, it's really interesting. He has a whole psychological breakdown of why it's necessary for people to do this kind of events, because they need to have a sense of purpose and a sense of strength and a sense of you're just feeling like they're wanted, needed, and worthwhile. Like it's pretty crazy. A lot of psychologists were part of the documentary just explaining why so many people were getting into it. And my friend does a really amazing job of telling the story of how he got into it, looking for a little bit of like purpose and direction. And then he was like, wow, this is such an interesting culture. And then he just builds like this whole international tour of understanding and talking to all these specialists of why it's become such a phenomenon. So I would encourage you to watch that, but I'm just kind of a typical bro who ended up rising to the top of the whole thing.
Very cool. I'm going to have to put a link to that in the show notes of this podcast. One thing, as I was doing some research on you, Hunter, for this show, I found out that you're the youngest of 4 boys and were diagnosed with severe ADD as a kid and was medicated with Ritalin, Adderall, Dexedrine, you name it.
All the good stuff.
All to control your uncontrollable energy. One thing I found is several top athletes have this ADD background. What was that experience like, and how did you move past that?
Well, honestly, I just think it may be considered a genetic. Maybe in the beginning it seemed like a genetic curse, like where you have this disorder that was uncontrollable and didn't fit very well in the environment of a typical school. And I think about it now, and back in the day in Eastern Bloc countries, they used to have these kind of like sports camps where they'd have all the local towns bring in their children and they'd have everybody test their skills of, they'd have a kid run a lap around the track to see how fit they were, and they'd have them do broad jump, and they maybe have them throw something. And then if you were really good, they would take you away and put you in sports school, and that'd basically be the development program for making you an Olympian. I think now, like if you looked at some of these character traits, you'd almost consider them to be like a superpower, almost like the same kind of skill that a kid would have back in the day, where if he was able to run around the track fast, or he was able to throw a ball farther than everybody else. Because I never considered what I had to be a weakness or like a problem, but the school system for sure was like, this is uncontrollable, uncontainable, and unnecessary to have in our classroom. So they were like, we're putting this kid on pills, and we're going to, stuff him in a special room so he shuts up. And like, I'm not trying to be like, oh, poor me. Like there's a lot of other kids who are in the same situation. So I had some bros to hang out with while I was in there. But I just caught up with one of my friends, Justin Pasha. He has this incredible business now. He's one of the most successful kids to graduate from our high school. And he has this incredible business now where he has a cocktail business, a premium cocktail business, where he'll come to a wedding, a party, anything you want. Like he's been contracted by the biggest businesses there are in Hollywood to host like the after parties for the Grammys and stuff, and be one of the cocktail guys. And he's so successful, and he built the whole thing. But at the time, this kid was put in the room next to me and stuffed full of medication, and basically on the train to nowhere. because of what the school system thought. And same with me. Like, if you looked at me, like, I remember going back to my 10-year high school reunion, and everybody was like, at the time, I remember seeing Mr. Popular, Mr. being most likely to be successful, Mr. most likely to be the president, so on and so forth. And I saw these kids, and I'm like, you guys fucking went nowhere. You guys went nowhere. And I, like, you know, and I look at Justin and look what he did, and I look at what I did, and we are the two most troublesome, most, like, you know, everyone thought we were going to go nowhere, deadbeat kids, and we both made it. And I'm like, what are the chances that we had a school full of thousands of kids, and then there was a room full of the special ed kids that maybe counted between 10 and 20 of us, and two of us are absolutely annihilating it. And then of those thousands of other kids in the school, if you looked at the percentages don't even stack up anywhere near as much as the kids that were supposed to be the ADHD problem kids. Yeah. So, you know, sorry to go on a rant, but I think about it all the time. It's a pretty crazy thing that we went through, because we were like in the ADHD era when we were first discovering these pills and testing kids. It was like almost like a pill version of lobotomizing people. And it's interesting. Like, as soon as I was court ordered to be on the medication until I was like 20 years old, because when I got out of rehab, they were like, you need to stay on medication or you're going back into the court system, potentially jail. So I had to stay on the stuff. And as soon as I got off the medication, like, I skyrocketed. Like, I did my own thing. I followed my own path, and life got really good for me.
Wow. So much insight there. Thanks for sharing that. Any listeners out there, if you have any form of ADD, don't listen to what people are telling you. Don't let anybody set your own limitations. That story is value-ridden. Man, thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah, of course.
So throughout this journey, Hunter, what was your lowest moment?
You know, there was a point when I started Spartan Racing, and I was actually doing pretty well, and my parents had paid for me to get to a couple races and sponsored me to at least get my feet off the ground in the sport. And I was kind of lying to them and still taking a lot of drugs and traveling and going partying. Like, with the money that I had left in my pocket, I wasn't saving it up towards doing good things. I was spending it more on drugs. And I had a point where I basically had hit like an overdose in Miami, and my family thought I was back in California training for my next championship the week later. And like, I remember like having to change my ticket, thinking I was going to die and like overdose on this stuff. And I was like, it was the last money I had to my name. And I was like, I was just like, you know, I was basically lying to people and using their money and using their trusts to party when I should have been dedicated to my craft. And I don't like lying. I don't like being dishonest. Like, I just felt like I was playing a game of smoke and mirrors for people, like trying to be a top-notch athlete, but also a top-notch partier. So I recognized right then and there, I was like, you know, you're going to have to make a decision where you either be selfish and go out on your own and just party and see that thing through, or you take the support and love of your friends, family, and sponsors and accept that people are investing in you because they believe in you, and follow through on the commitment that they gave you, and, you know, somehow pay it back. So I had to make that decision. And it was a low point in the way that I didn't like sit there and cry. It was just kind of like, it was a coin. I had to flip it to the other side, and I just started going full on. It wasn't like any 50-50. I just was full on back into training, and I said, I'm not going to mess around.
So that was an internal decision. You consciously saw what you were doing and made that decision to switch gears.
Completely.
Yeah. Flipping the coin, what sticks out as the top? What are some of the memories that stand out as the most fond for you?
I would say some of the most fond moments are, you know, my family was divorced when I was 5, and admittedly my mom and dad, like, they have a cordial relationship, but they don't have a relationship that's like booming where they stay in touch, and, you know, they don't have any reason to talk to each other other than when there's something going on between my brother and I. And at my world championship for Tough Mudder this year, my mom and my dad both came and watched me. And usually it's just so insane they don't even get to talk to each other. But this year they actually got to like hang out and catch up because they had to stay there for a couple days. Like I had rented a house and they had to be around each other. And it was like pretty amazing getting to see how excited they both were to be a part of it. And it just seemed like, it was a great, like they had both created me and created the environment for this to all happen. And I don't think they often get to like sit there and bask in it because they're always just doing such crazy things on their own. My mom's a really hardworking real estate agent. My dad's a really hardworking, finance writer. So between the two of them, they don't really even get to think about the success and the amazing things that they've done for their children. And I think it was like a moment where they thought they got to like sit still for a moment and just watch it. And that was pretty cool.
I think it's so cool that you actually, took such notice of that. Of all the stuff going on, you're like, wow, one of the most satisfying things here is that we're having fun, in that regard. Huh.
Yeah. At championship time, I can almost see things more clearly and more quietly than any other time of the year because like I'm just so honed in. And, I think that's another thing you'll notice is like with athletes, like the top level athletes, they don't get frantic in those times. That's when I was happiest. Training for me can be more stressful than competing. And competing, it's like surfing a wave. Like I made it. I'm on top now. Now I just got to ride the thing out.
Now I just got to ride that thing out. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna steal that quote from you. So let's talk about the 2017 and 2018 Tough Mudder World Championship. How does it happen? Are there multiple heats? How does the event unfold?
So you're probably talking about TMX. It's the 1 mile world title. It's like a functional fitness running event where there's 10 obstacles and 10 functional fitness challenges. So 2017 was the beginning of it, and it's a 1 mile race, and there's multiple. In 2017 there was only 2 goes at it. There was the semifinals, and then there was the finals. So basically, semifinals, all 40 male athletes had to go in different heats, 10 at a time, and you'd run out. Like the first year it was designed like this. It was 1 obstacle to 1 strength thing. So I ran out. First thing we did was we pounded it out there. We did some box jumps, 15 back and forth. Then we had to go climb up over this huge wall, back over the other side, climb up over another huge wall. Then you had to do a huge rope climb and then diagonal rope climb across. Then you had to go over a couple. Then you had to get to the sled pull. So you had to drag the sled out and then pull the sled back. And it's, 200 something pounds. Then you had to go up over a huge obstacle. And so it keeps on going like that all the way through the course. And then it's kind of the strongest survive. The best paces move forward, and only 20 athletes went to the finals. And I was able to pull off the title that year, and it was like, something I'd been waiting for my entire life. I'm 6'2" and 210 pounds, and I'm competing against most guys in obstacle course racing who are 5'7" and 140 pounds. And, I can still run in season like a 15-15 5K. Best I ever got was a 14:55K. But, that's a really, really huge body to travel through time and space. And especially the longer distances when we get up into those 13 to 17 mile races up in the mountains of Tahoe, it's just devastating.
Right.
And then 2018 season came around, and I had to go again. And so we had a couple more of these championships, and it just kept on getting more competitive. A lot of the top level CrossFitters decide to come in because it's actually kind of a CrossFit event, even though there are obstacles there and there is running. 1 mile to cover is not that much distance. Like you wouldn't consider it to be a full blown endurance event. And with the amount of strength and capacity that you had to move these big sandbags and big sleds and kettlebells and stuff, like you had to be full on really well-rounded athlete. So by the time 2018 championship came around, there was a couple guys and girls who were podium athletes at the CrossFit Games sitting toe to toe with me on the starting line of the finals. And you're like, holy crap, like this is as fit as it gets. And, honestly, with the luck of good training over the past couple of years, I was able to win that title as well. And I don't know why, but like it really does feel like surfing a wave. Like the entire time didn't feel like the water was overtaking me. It just like I felt like I was just kind of like threading that needle so perfectly, where I was not touching any of the sides. Like there was no friction. I just was kind of floating through time and space, and I was able to talk to my coach at the same time, and I was able to wave to my parents, and I was able to count the reps so easily in my head, and I was able to flow over the obstacles. And it was one of those moments where training came together so well that I was able to really cinch the title pretty easily the second time. So now I'm third season of it and back at it.
That flow state is such a great place to be as an athlete, and I like the way you described it. Is it just almost becomes easy when you're in that mind state. How long does that event take? Like for your 1 mile course, the winning time, what is that?
The best time I ever posted on the course was 10:19. So you got to figure you're probably holding between a 4:45 and a 6-minute mile the entire time. And, each obstacle, if you think about 20 movements and you add it up, each one of them takes about 20 seconds. That's where it's coming in. If you ran a 6-minute mile and you've got 400 seconds, I think that's around right. I don't know. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that is intense. So you're doing all those obstacles basically in 10 minutes and completing a mile.
Yeah. And in the finals in the 2018 World Championship, we had to do it 3 times in one day. So that's when it started to get pretty gosh darn crazy. And every single time they changed the course just a little bit with the movements. The obstacles stayed the same, but instead of doing, kettlebell swings and carries, you had to do kettlebell deadlifts and like carries, and you had to do thrusters instead of lunges. Like it every single time it got a little bit more challenging. So by the end of it, it was pretty crazy. Like the first race, the person, everybody was about 5 minutes behind me. Like the last person was about 5 minutes behind me. The last race, even of the top 10 best athletes, the last guy came in 9 minutes behind me because it was like so intense.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you crushed the field. One thing I've noticed through this series of interviews is that so many successful athletes, and you've already spoke to this, have some sort of multisport background. Real quick, how did your time wrestling or your time in throwing javelin or these other things, do you feel like that's given you an advantage? And can you speak to just the importance of being well-rounded as an athlete, not just doing one thing?
Well, interestingly enough, I never took anything seriously when I was a kid, and maybe that's a good thing because I see a lot of people getting burnt out. Like after college athletes graduate, they almost don't want to do it anymore. But I notice now when I start to see athletes come in and try to do a Spartan race or a Tough Mudder, if they I've seen national champions, Olympic medalists come in and try Spartan races, and they just get annihilated. And I think it's because they spend so much of their life doing one thing that as soon as they get out of their comfort zone, it just is too much for them to handle. And it's odd because you see somebody who's the tip of the spear when it comes to athletic talent in a sport, and they just can't hang. And like you assume a 15-minute 5K in the scheme of things is not that fast. Like I was going up against a guy named David Torrance, who was a 13:19 5Ker. And I remember him running alongside of me at our world title in Tahoe. And the guy looked like he was running like, you ever seen an action movie when you light somebody on fire and they run like out of the building screaming? Like he looked like that. I was like, oh my God, I'm inferior. I don't know why I'm even here. He's so fast. And he just dropped out halfway through the race. And I don't blame him because it's a freaking brutal thing to do. It's just, it's a tough sport, especially at the very, very top level. And all I can say is just having that comfort of just never being anxious and always being kind of open-minded to try new things and being a versatile person is it's a superpower in athletics. Uh, like the, it's incredible. Like my friend who's my roommate, Matt Kempson, he's not the best athlete, but he just spent his childhood doing dirt biking, rock climbing, rugby, soccer, skiing, everything at like a pretty good level. That when we hang out, like he and I were just in Tahoe for this man camp where we went snowmobiling, cross country skiing, backcountry skiing, everything. He was just so good at everything. I was like, dude, like how he'd never tried skate skiing before, and he just went out there and annihilated it. And I was like, how did you do that so quickly? And I'm sitting there looking like a drunk. It was just amazing. So I think it's important to have that kind of, if you got kids right now and you're listening to this, make them do it all.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to take that. That's a takeaway I'm going to run away with after this interview.
Yeah.
Let's say that you're someone listening to this, you're signed up for your first obstacle course race. What advice would you give them?
Well, I would just say go in with an open mind and just jump into everything. I watch too many people their first time going into it, look at it, and just be like, I don't know what to do. I'm a little nervous. And they like sit there and hesitate. Like it's best to just go. These things aren't designed for people to fail. They're designed for people to get stronger and be more encouraged and refine themselves over time. Not to like come in and just kick your ass and destroy you the first time you're there. So understand that millions of people have done it before you, and you'll do the same exact thing. You'll accomplish your goals and just get right through it just as easily as everybody else has. You just have to have that mindset of getting after it.
There you go, Hammer Factor Nation. Get yourself in the right mindset and just get after it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the transition from doing these races, borrowing money from your parents and whatever, to getting sponsors. How do you approach sponsorship?
Gosh, I'm just going to be brutally honest with you. I don't know how the sponsorship game works that well, because I just am always so amazed. I'm always so amazed that people do sponsor me, because in reality, I'm just your average guy who's just kind of living life. And to have the fact, like to imagine that somebody's going to pay you money and give you a t-shirt, so on and so forth, with their brand on it and ask you to represent your brand still boggles me. Cause I'm like, wow, that's a pretty gosh darn cool. That's a really, really cool responsibility. But if I had to give you guys the 101 on how to get after it, I think being a sponsored athlete is about being you to your truest self and really being honest with why a product that you use is part of who you are. I remember when I first started, I allowed a couple people to sponsor me that I didn't really even know what the product was. I'm like, well, I'm 22 years old. I don't have a dollar to my name. I guess if you want to throw me a couple bucks and ask me to say something, I will. But then as I matured, I was like, man, like, honestly, I would never wear that or use that or do that. And I think that's something you have to really be honest with yourself. Like, I always tell people, I'm like, you'll get more coming to you the truer you are to yourself and the more honest you are with the people that are following you. And like, if you look at my social media, like, I don't ever post a picture with like a gigantic, like a soda can stuffed in your face, like, drink this, it's the best way to get through life. Like, I live my life, and when I wake up in the morning, I have always been a huge fan of creatine. And I started taking concrete creatine when I was 19 years old and started bodybuilding. 10 years later, I met the founder of Concrete Creatine at the LA Fit Expo. And I was like, hey, man, like, I've been using your stuff for 10 years. Like, I love it. Thank you. And that's all we said. And then I just stayed in touch with him and just kept on talking to him. And I asked him, how that product would work better for my sport and I was like, it just doesn't make any sense that 5 grams of creatine is all you need to get stronger. Like, I weigh 210 pounds. My friend weighs 150 pounds. I work out 6 hours a day. They work out 1 hour a day. That doesn't make any sense. And he's like, and we just started learning about how the chemical cocktail worked in your body and how you could better supplement yourself. And we just ended up getting into a partnership, and now he's been sponsoring me for the past year. And like, I can honestly say I didn't do anything other than just be myself, be honest with myself, be honest with the people around me. And it just kind of happened. And like, I hope that makes sense.
No, that is a great takeaway. If you're listening to this show, be true to yourself, and not only will your sponsors get more value, but you'll align yourself with sponsors that give you more value. So
Yeah.
that is very wise words right there. What's a day of training look like for you? Do you do tapers? Do you consistently do the same thing every day? Give me the rundown of your routine to get fit enough to do these events.
I'm a big periodization guy. Like, I think there should be a off season meant for strength. I think there should be a strength endurance season, which is just before your season starts, which is about 2 to 3 months, where it's like practice. That's like kind of like my tempo time and my like EMOMs, like taking a barbell and like every minute on the minute for 20 minutes, do on minute 1, do, 3 squat cleans. On minute 2, do, 3 snatches. And like, it's just because I'm doing a lot of CrossFit stuff right now. And just keep on doing that back and forth for 20 minutes and just practice having strength in that position over time. And then in season, it's more about having the energy to do the hard workouts that keep you sharp. And that's usually that's when I start to really get into designing my week really, really specifically. Like, Mondays is heavy and hard track workouts. Tuesday is volume, like 3 workouts a day where it's just like constantly moving. Like, I'll wake up in the morning and I'll do some like a CrossFit workout. And then at lunchtime, I'll do another EMON workout. And then in the evening, I'll go for like a 60 to 90 minute bike ride or a 45 to 60 minute run. Wednesday is like just long, slow, and easy endurance where you're just like allowing yourself to breathe and relax and have fun. That's usually done on a bike or like a really easy trail run. Thursday is like hit it freaking super hard again and super intense. Friday is one of those more of like Tuesday again. It's like just do stuff like it's skill based and like lifting and gymnastics and easy running. Saturday is competition day because most competitions are on Saturday. So I just train like that every Saturday. So my body knows like, when Saturday comes, it's time to go. And that's usually 2 to 3 workouts of just absolute, every single workout gets more intense. Like in the morning, I'm like, I go. And at lunchtime, I'm like, I'm going hard. And in the evening time, like, you go for broke. And then Sunday is like hike, swim, relax, eat food, spend as much time on the couch as possible.
Right. I like that. I really like the takeaway of just conditioning your body to be ready for that Saturday. It's expecting that kind of shock of the actual event.
I think too many people get after working out like hard all the time, and like when my easy days come around, like I'm chilling. Like, you can hang out with me and talk the entire time. Like, I'll get off the treadmill in the middle of my workout and just kind of do some stretches and hang out and talk to you for a second. And then I'll get back to it. Like, it's just chill out because it's almost, you stretch your mind almost more than you do your body in some of these weeks.
Right. No.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. We touched on this a little bit earlier in the show. And this is a question that we ask everyone and we get so many different answers. But what's your diet like?
God, it's pretty crazy, and I wouldn't prescribe it to most people, but I eat at least 2 pounds of steak a day. At this time of year, I've kind of pulled back a little bit on the steak. I'll have 1 steak a day, and I'll eat 1 rotisserie chicken a day, like a whole thing. And lots of bread, lots of rice, lots of orange juice. Like, I really do not believe in the ketosis stuff. And I believe in high fat's not a problem, but I really like to just sit down with people who want to, pitch me their keto ideas, and I just sit there with the biggest smile on my face and let them try to sell it to me. But if you gave me 20 avocados, I'll eat 20 avocados. And if you gave me 20 oranges, I'll eat 20 oranges. Like, at this point, it's more about having valuable numbers in nutrition rather than this perfect kale, superfood latte, blah, blah, blah bullshit. Because in reality, if you're working as much as I do and you weigh as much as I do, it's going to cost you a lot. And if you look, honestly, at the top level performers, you almost never see them. Like, my ex-girlfriend, she was an Olympic swimmer. She ate so healthy, and I didn't get it. But most people I hang out with, they just eat crap all the time. Like, when I was hanging out with Rory, like, Rory eats relatively healthy, but then she eats lots of candy too.
Yeah.
And you just be amazed. Like, you just need to get the stuff in. Like, last night I came home and I had a peanut butter and honey sandwich, and I had a big thing of orange juice, and I had a big thing of rice. Like, that's just so many carbs. Most people will be like, you can't eat carbs after 8 p.m. or you're going to get fat. No, I'm pretty shredded, and I feel great about it. So I hope that made sense. Like, what I was trying to tell the listener is I'm a big believer in macronutrients. I follow macronutrient diets. I've had a nutrition coach for a while, and now he's just a bro because we basically found out the formula, but he runs a company called Beyond Macros. And as long as I hit my numbers, like, you'd be surprised. Like, it could even include ice cream. If I hit my numbers, I wake up in the morning, like, ready to punch through brick walls, and I look lean and I perform well.
Right. No.
Yeah.
It is amazing the diversity of diets of top tier athletes. It really is.
Yeah.
What are you up to now? What's your schedule looking like in the near future?
What I'm trying to do right now is I'm going to try to compete in the CrossFit Games. And the way that I'm going to do it is they have what's called the blowhard card now, or the wild card, where the CEO, Greg Glassman, has introduced a opportunity for 4 female and 4 male athletes outside of the sport of CrossFit who think that they're badasses to come and compete in the CrossFit Games. And I've said this for years. Like, I'm not a CrossFit athlete. Like, you know me well enough where even in the show we talked about me hosting a ultra endurance television show, competing on Spartan Race, doing 24-hour races. Like, those are not CrossFit workouts. But I've always loved to do CrossFit because I think it's a functional, well spread out. Like, I never feel like there's any kind of workout when I go to the gym or anything in a contest that I show up to that I'm afraid of because I've done CrossFit for years.
Right.
But I will not qualify the traditional way because I'm too leaned toward endurance. So I'm hoping that I get one of the CrossFit wild cards this year. So I've been training to learn their skills, but I'm still doing a very big chunk of cardio. And in a perfect world, I would like to go compete in the CrossFit Games in August and do well there, and then just go rip people to shreds at Tahoe World Championships for Spartan in October.
I love that.
Yeah. So the Bo Jackson of the modern day.
The Bo Jackson of modern day. You know what? There could be some kind of T-shirt that comes out of that. Yeah,
statement. Dude, Bo knows. We got to just come up with a catchy phrase for Hunter.
Tell me about this T-30 program. You're an instructor for this. What is that?
T-30 was something where I was contacted by a company called OpenFit, and they are a new platform where they're trying to, everything's done on your phone these days or on demand. It's just people are finding easy ways to get workouts done, just like P90X and Insanity. You could do it from the comfort of your own home. It was a similar platform as that, and they contacted me. And they're like, hey, listen, we want to help people get ready for Tough Mudders. Would you mind doing a program with us? So they made a collaboration with Tough Mudder. I used to be a spin instructor and fitness instructor for years. So they're like, you're a perfect fit. You do the things and you used to teach the things. So I was like, yeah, I'll do it. So we took 3 months developing this thing from all the years of experience that I had, basically from competing for years and working out with people of all shapes and sizes and fitness levels for years. We're like, how can we create a program in 30 days where almost anybody could feel like they'll just crush a Tough Mudder? So we created this thing, and it's on demand. Stream it from your phone, from your laptop, from your TV, whatever it is. Once you have the platform, which is called My Open Fit, it's a really, really fun program. It's Monday through Saturday. Every single day of the week has a new dynamic workout. It includes a running program where I do some audio runs for you guys. It includes a pull-up, chin-up program so you have the grip strength to get over these obstacles. And then it has every single day of the week, it goes extreme conditioning, dumbbell endurance, athletic training day, dynamic dumbbells, Mudder ground strength, and then Mudder mobility. So 6 days of just like fun-packed, dynamic, exciting workouts.
Nice. And are these delivered in like a video format, or are they all audio, or how does the someone who signs up for the T-30 get this program?
So you'd want to go onto the app. You can click, like if you go to my Instagram, there's an easy link there. Or if you just go into the App Store, you type in Open Fit, it will pop up. And once you have it, like the program is there's streaming workouts like anything. There's a yoga one, there's a bar one, there's a 600-second one, which is basically 10 minutes of working out a day one, and then there's a T-30 one. So there's a humongous package. Once you have the membership for $99, you can do $99 for the year. You can do whatever you want. But if you want to specifically do T-30, you click on it and it will start literally a countdown for 30 days of workouts for you until you're Tough Mudder. So, I mean, even if you didn't want to do a Tough Mudder, it's pretty insane, like how ripped you'll get. Like, we had a test group where we ran a lot of the employees at Tough Mudder through it. And I had these people come up to me. I'd never met them before, but they're like, Hunter, like, we did your program. Like, I lost 18 pounds. Another guy lost 15 pounds. Another girl lost 11 pounds. Like, and they got in shape. Like, it's a really well-rounded, awesome, kick-ass program. So, it's functional fitness. It's something that will literally make you feel like an athlete so you can perform like an athlete.
Very cool. I'll be sure to put a link to that in the show notes.
Appreciate it.
We're getting close here to the end of our interview. Is there anything else that I haven't covered that you'd like to share with our audience?
No, dude, like, honestly, it was great to connect with you, and I appreciate your time. Thanks for sharing my story. But anybody, if you ever want to get a hold of me, my name's Hunter McIntyre. You can find me on social media really easily, and I always try to do my best to return the favor because a lot of people extended their hand out to me while I was learning. So if you ever need help, just reach out.
Okay, and is there a preferred place where our listeners can follow you? Are you an Instagrammer or Facebook, or what's the best platform?
Instagram is my go-to.
All right, well, there you go. We'll follow Hunter McIntyre on Instagram. Good luck, and I hope you qualify for the CrossFit Games. And, man, I appreciate the time. This has been great.
Thanks a ton, dude. Good connecting.